My name's Tyler, I'm 29, live in Bristol, and I've ran my own coffee shop for 5 years. Just before COVID, I suppose, so play a lot of sport, people take photos, you look at the photos, you start noticing. Until you sort of see it from an objective point of view, or like a third-party view, you don't really notice it as much. And that's obviously when you're styling your own hair, you obviously hide it. Compounded that was the COVID being on Zoom and looking at yourself for quite a few hours. And that's when I sort of really noticed. My research started with Google, and then I was recommended to the treatment rooms. Virtual consultation was great for me. Where my recession was, it's quite easy to see it. And then, Dr. Fernando gave me an indication of how much treatment or what the treatment will consist of anyway. So I was on finasteride before the procedure for about 6 months. And I did actually see some hair regrowth from that. Quite minimal, but it was still encouraging. My first visit to the clinic, I think I was okay about it. I'd virtually met Dr. Fernando. It was sort of the step necessary that I needed to then fully make up my mind. I mean, I think it was that consultation where I agreed. Biggest fear for me was was afterwards. What am I going to look like? Especially as I was still working, and I was working face to face. And I suppose maybe an even bigger worry, which had actually probably been squashed by this point, but obviously it's always in the back of your head of will the procedure work? As I said, I'd seen other work from people who'd been to the treatment rooms, and that was sort of enough for me to be confident. So for the actual day of the procedure was an early start, met with Dr. Fernando, fully aware of what the day was going to consist of. The treatment room sent me sort of an outline of the day. I was quite nervous, but sort of, everyone was smiley, everyone was friendly. So I think nerves are always going to be there. When I was asked, do you want a full shave, do you want a partial shave? I asked for a partial shave because I could sort of hide it. On that day, my biggest fear will have been don't want to be in pain. I was given some medication to sort of relax, and it definitely worked. And then the next step, which was removing the hairs, completely painless. And then after that, I had some lunch provided by the treatment rooms, which was really nice. So for the recovery, I was given a sheet of information from the treatment rooms, which basically outlined when to take the medication for the next 2 weeks, I think it was. The recovery, it all healed quite quickly. The initial sort of hair looked relatively normal. I got no questions about it. And then the actual recovery at the back of the head, I'm pretty sure that was back to normal within 2 weeks. Fast forward to 6 months, that's when I started seeing, really good progress. The surgery has changed my life in terms of I now don't have to worry and be self-conscious of how my hair is looking. Pre-surgery, I was worried about wind, I was worried about being caught off guard for photographs. So the advice that I would give to someone who's looking at getting a hair transplant would be have a consultation. My consultation was with Dr. Fernando at the treatment rooms. There you find out, have you been on any medication first? Going on to the medication gives you enough time to process, sort of, is this right for me? If you put finasteride into Google, you see you read about a lot of horror stories. I think it's one of those things where you hear about the negatives as opposed to the people who are fine with it. I personally have had no side effects from finasteride. Super happy with the final result and the initial sort of what I wanted out of the procedure. Mature hairline, which is what I discussed with Dr. Fernando from day one, and that's what I've got. I would definitely recommend the treatment rooms to a friend, to anyone who's considering it. And I have recommended them to a friend already.